What is up, wrestling fans, and welcome to the final part of the 2023 Smark Out Moment End of the Year Awards, and the final part of the WWE Awards section of this. We have already done our Part 1 Technical Skills Awards. Go back and check out that video if you haven't already. We've already done our Part 2 Writing Awards, and then obviously, of course, we have taken care of the AEW Awards. Make sure you go check out Parts 1, 2, and 3 on that front. Technical Skills, Writing Awards, and Performer Awards there. But as far as this edition is concerned, we are wrapping things up with the Performer Awards over on WWE, where we're going to talk about the individual superstars and who kind of made the best and the worst impressions of the year for us. Now, as a reminder, we want you to chime in with your thoughts in the comment section below. Tell us what your picks are in every single category and what you think about our picks. So go ahead and do that on YouTube. Make sure you're clicking that like button, ringing that little notification bell, double checking that you are subscribed, and joining us on the channel membership. Same thing as the Patreon. Get access to the Darkcast tier, the Pick Your Poison tier, and so on and so forth. Redbubble and TeePublic, where you can pick up your merchandise if you want to be doing that. Still technically a little bit of time before Christmas. I think that the sales are probably still going to be going on, so take advantage of that while you can. And if you don't know who we are, after all this time, I'm Tony Mango, joined by Robert DeFelice.
Hello.
And Callum Wiggins.
Somehow still here.
Very much still here. We are all still here, at least for now. 2 minutes from now, who knows? I don't know. We might still be in a hologram, or for all we know, CERN did something and screwed up the dimensional vortex or something. I don't know. That's another discussion for another day. But at least as far as the end of the year awards for WWE, we have lots to talk about. So let's start getting into it here. Again, we have already talked about a lot of these topics in some fashion, through talking about like the best and the worst gimmicks or storylines or title reigns or entrances, all the little elements that make up the actual individual performers. But now that we actually can take all of that information and condense it, who were the best and who were the worst superstars in WWE this year? And we start off with the best and the worst managers or valets. And these can be a wide variety of different people. There are, I believe, about a dozen. Let me double check from my list that we can constitute from this year. It seems like the full breakdown was. I'm looking at the wrong list. I'm looking at 2022 because I just saw Hachiman on there and he was not a part of that this year. All right, so the manager is actually much less this year than the previous year. From my account, I only have B-Fab, Maxine Dupree, MVP for like 2 matches or so, Paul Heyman, Robert Stone, and Scarlett as the only managers and valets that I could think of. I don't know if I'm really forgetting anything, but obviously if anybody does remember anything, drop your thoughts in the comments below, or we might remind each other of different things and then change our opinions. But out of that group, not a whole lot to pick from, but I'm going to say the worst is B-Fab, because what did she do? And what did she do that was good, at least in that front? She did almost nothing, and it was bad. You guys have for your worst?
Not an indictment on any of their characters or anything, but I guess like MVP, because in kayfabe, like, you're not a very successful manager, are you? Your guy has been on like 2 shows this year.
Yeah, that's a good point. Manage better. Manage him to get some free agent matches or something.
Yeah.
Well, in the same vein, then my worst one is Scarlett.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good group to pick from.
It's more also due to the fact that obviously she's managing a guy who is still trying to be repackaged because Triple H just can't let go of this guy. He's going to make this guy a success. Pretty much probably he sees a lot of himself in Karrion Kross in that he's being forced down beyond his ability level. But I think that the Scarlett's, because I've seen Scarlett do more interesting things in pretty much every other promotion, and she just is there in WWE.
She did great as the host of Halloween Havoc. I really enjoyed that.
She had more fun, clearly, co-hosting that than doing anything else. Yeah. So it's like, just done, and I have her do that instead. But Scarlett was definitely an option for me. She's my my backup. But BFAB, I figured, at least Scarlett did have that Halloween Havoc thing. I don't know anything the BFAB did that we could be like.
It looked like they were going to put her with Lashley. I don't know with Lashley.
It kind of seems like they either are having cold feet about it and not doing that, or that they are waiting for some reason. But I can't imagine what their reasoning would be to wait, because it's not like, oh, well, we got to make sure that BFAB does this other story first or something,
They have cold feet on Lashley profits.
Yeah, just in general.
Yeah. Like,
for a group of
there.
3 talented people, they kind of can't seem to get the ball rolling. It's very strange. That might come up on our best and worst tag teams of the year kind of discussion, but at least as far as the best managers go, we're all going Paul Heyman, right?
Ripley, fuck you.
Oh, I don't constitute her.
No. She was
spent more time as manager this year than the rest
yeah,
of us.
she's
So I'd argue that
she's ringside on Raw, she's ringside on SmackDown, she's ringside on NXT. Rhea Ripley.
If you count her, then I understand the argument. I am not going to count her for my own, so I'm going to go Paul Heyman on my front. But yeah, if she counts in your end, then yeah, then she definitely would be the best.
Oh, I mean, like you gone Rhea Ripley, you gone Paul Heyman. Fuck it, I'll go Mr. Stone.
Hey, he's
the best part of Von Wagner's act.
He's the best opposite of MVP. He is a manager who is managing his client. He cares about his mental health. He cares about his sausages. Mr. Stone is great.
Does care about those sausages. People have Taco Tuesday. They have sausages on Come Tuesday, so.
Yeah, but they do.
Yeah, not a really particularly great year for managers, and I'm hoping that they turn that around. And
even for Heyman, like let's
be honest.
Heyman, like you hated the Brock Lesnar thing.
Mm-hmm.
I found the end stage Brock Lesnar stuff more entertaining this year than just my tribal chief. I love you. Please call Roman Reigns.
The amount of times that happened this year, yeah, just hold up a phone and say call Roman Reigns.
Yeah, so like I wish I could give it to Heyman because he is the best, but not this year.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but wouldn't he have to either hit a button or say some kind of trigger word like, echo or something along those lines?
We don't know if he's holding the button.
Doesn't he usually have his finger on the outside?
He's usually holding it well enough that it could be perceived that he's holding the correct button.
There's that's the part of me that's like what's the thing from The Simpsons about like when Itchy and Scratchy are playing the xylophone. You hit the same note twice when it plays a different key. What kind of person wrote that in there? Like,
I hope somebody got fired for that.
Right? Yeah. So I guess there's a wizard on SmackDown just doing all this stuff, but not the best year for that. I mean, we've talked about how the Bloodline story was just coasting this whole year, and even on the Paul Heyman front, it's basically just like, well, deal with it. We're gonna kind of do the same shtick but lesser. It's a shame. Moving on here to the best and the worst broadcast correspondents of the year. These used to be 3 different categories where we would have the ring announcers, the interviewers, and the panel analysts or anchors, whatever you would want to call them. Eventually, we just decided to combine them all together and kind of just toss the discussion into one big thing. So I have under my best one for each, just to be fair. I think that for instance, Matt Camp is the best analyst that they have. He's passionate. He brings up great points. He can speak really well, and he's on all different types of like programs. So great stuff from Matt Camp all the time. My best ring announcer is, I'm assuming what everybody would agree with, Samantha Irvin.
It's Samantha Irvin.
Like, she is so much more fun than what a lot of the people that we've had over the years, including people like Lillian Garcia. And Lillian wasn't bad by any means, but Samantha Irvin manages to put her own little twist on things, whether it's
she says everybody's name with such an inflection.
she does.
Person.
Yeah, she does something different for a good portion of people, and some people you can't do anything too super crazy with. Like, is she really going to be like, Cruz del Toro and in like a really kind of different way? But like the Chelsea Green kind of stuff is fun, and all the Imperium stuff when she gets super hyped into that. And she did somebody the other day. I remember trying to remember who it was, but she just decided to like start rolling her R's when she started saying their name, and it wasn't even somebody like Santos Escobar, where it would. That's what it was. Yeah, Piper Niven was.
It's Scottish.
Yes, and I was just like, oh, she's doing that now. Okay, cool. Like, she has fun with it.
She says Gable with like the nerdy voice. Gable, like she's great. She is honestly jumped the line for a lot of ring announcers for me, where I'd be like, yeah, if you were only watching wrestling for the last decade, she's got to already be on your Mount Rushmore. Because like everybody else is so generic.
Mm-hmm. And I like Mike Rome, and we've had some other people over the years that have been like, Alicia Taylor's not bad, but like Irvin just has a stamp on it. Like, yeah, and in a way that like she's not going to beat out Howard Finkel, of course, on my like top rope list of all time or something, but like
she's on the list probably.
At this point, she would be in that Mount Rushmore discussion for me. For WWE announcers, for sure, yeah. And then when it comes to interviews, sad that this is going to be the last year I can say this, but Mackenzie Mitchell, very clearly the best one, and I don't understand how they released her. I
don't know either. Apparently, Shawn Michaels doesn't even know. He's like, yeah, it was a surprise to me, and you all love her. So
yeah, like what's the thought process behind this? We haven't heard any information, and she was the only release that had came out that day, so it wasn't even like
she was the only talent that was released.
Right, yeah, I mean, like other employees and stuff, but like if it would have been different, it would have been like, oh, we got rid of Mackenzie and Megan Morant and Sarah Schreiber and I don't know, like Galen Mendonca from WWE Now India, or like one of those kind of things, like where you could go like, okay, they're really kind of condensing that, and for some reason they wanted to get rid of Mackenzie, which I still wouldn't understand either, because I would get rid of everybody on that other than Mackenzie more than any, like top of the list. Don't have like I like Kelly Kincaid, but Mackenzie's just the best interview, and I'm hoping that something clicks where they end up giving her job back if she wants it to. I mean, that's the other thing. Maybe she will just be like, fuck this. Those are my best, though. I'll just toss it out now. For the worst, I just, the foreign analysts by default of me not being into them. But if you count other people than that, then I'd probably say analyst-wise, Kevin Patrick. I don't really think he brings too much more to the table.
Yeah, I think... Well, hold on, Callum, you haven't said anything one way or the other. Do you have a best?
Yeah, Kayla Braxton.
Kayla's good.
Braxton's fantastic. Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to be in the minority. I think Samantha Irving's announcements are really annoying.
Really?
Oh, do you?
Yeah. She's way, way, way too over the top with her stuff. And she has to put like the silly accent onto Gunther's entrance or the Chelsea Green thing. It's like, Howard Finkel was iconic and he just used his voice. Like, maybe, use your own voice and try and be iconic that way. And if not, just put a funny accent on it. And then, clearly everyone loves it now.
The problem is nobody has like a voice like Fink anymore. You know what I mean? Like, they're not hiring broadcast school.
I mean, if you were to ask me, is Samantha Irving a better ring announcer than Lillian Garcia, I would say no.
It took me a second.
Thank you.
Kayla's always been good. So she's like the one that this has continued to stay around when like Renee Young leaves, and then Charlie Caruso goes on to become a MAGA enthusiast. But yeah, I think that Kayla has always been a strong person behind the scenes and leading the the panels and stuff like that.
You have anybody for worst?
Oh, the gruesome twosome of Pete Rosenberg and Sam Roberts.
Oh, that's the gruesome twosome trademark, right?
Yeah.
There you go.
Oh, they've always been awful. Like,
I like them.
They are a bit much, especially like. I think it's Rosenberg who like really tries to heal it up. They're a bit much.
Yeah, I've never really bought into anything that Sam Roberts says since he said that Bianca Belair was overrated.
She's still in NXT when he did that. She was still.
Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah. Okay. Terrible.
I also want to shout out for just like sheer amount of work that he does that people don't pay any attention to. Byron Saxton is all over the place, man. And
he got a downgrade this year with like they took him off of commentary and just were like, yep, you're gonna run around and be the backstage guy again. But I think he does it well.
Yeah, he is like always done it in like the house show type stuff, and like he fills in the blank for everything else. Other than when like Scott Stanford comes in and they're like, hey Scott, can you run down like 400 different recap type shows and be in the studio? And Scott Stanford does a great job at that too. Like, I mean, there's lots of people that do a really good job in WWE and don't get any kind of praise where they pretty much should. But overall, those are the big standouts for better or worse. I don't know if anybody like Nina Wu is still around or if they're great, because I'm not going to watch WWE Now China. Why would I? I wouldn't watch WWE Now, let alone in another language. So, and it is fun to always see like randomly people pop into the pre-show panels where it's like, JBL popping up or Maria Menounos in the Hall of Fame type things and stuff. But none of them stood out to me this year, at least in particular.
Yeah, I didn't say worst, but I really couldn't because it's also inoffensive, and I've this year more than ever just skipped panels and stuff like that. So I'd probably side with Tony and just say the default blank of everyone who does those international shows, because I don't watch them.
Like realistically, it's kind of mean to be like, the ones that I don't watch are the ones that are the worst. But if you don't really dislike anybody else, then it's kind of a not applicable pick more than anything else. Now, commentator. I actually don't even remember this one person that I have on this list. Maybe it's actually a holdover from last year that I missed out on. Blake Howard.
Who?
Yeah, I'm like, who is Blake Howard?
Was he on Level Up? He had to be on Level Up.
So let me double check, because I mean that's the only thing that would make any sense to me. Either that or main event. No, apparently main event. Yeah, and he at least posted 7 weeks ago that he had been doing commentary with Wade Barrett. So I guess he's still doing main event. That goes to show how little we pay attention to main event. But yeah, I don't know about his commentary skills, but the people that I do have written down here were him, Booker T, Byron Saxton, Corey Graves, Kevin Patrick, Michael Cole, Pat McAfee, Sudu Shah, who has been released, Vic Joseph, and Wade Barrett. And I don't think I'm forgetting anybody else. So, I mean, kind of by default, if I would go with Sudu Shah or Blake Howard being the worst, that would be the same kind of thing. But I'm not actually going to go on that front. I'm going to go Kevin Patrick. And it sounds like I'm ragging on the guy, but I just honestly feel like he is the least impactful on this. Like, he doesn't have any real voice to himself. He doesn't really contribute in a way that like you could say Booker T is the worst, for instance, just because Booker phones it in and you can tell that he doesn't know certain people's names and like, but Booker T's fun to listen to. And listening to the commentary for Booker being all, no bread, no water, just meat, and like these like,
oh yeah,
yeah, it's like digging the Trick Williams theme song and the amount of times that he says champagne wishes and caviar dreams, and then he said the one time, they said I got 3 per episode or something. Like, that stuff's fun to listen to, whereas Kevin Patrick's just like, hey everybody, remember this pay-per-view is brought to you by WWE 2K. You're like, yep.
I don't dislike Kevin Patrick. A lot of people just straight up hate him.
Yeah, I don't hate the guy or anything. It's just like he's bland compared to the others.
Yeah, I might be echoing Callum here. I think Callum might be going a certain way with Corey Graves. And I thought about Corey Graves just because I used to love him. I haven't been feeling him as much lately. But like this year, especially with the part-time stuff, I'm kind of over the McAfee thing. I'm going to go McAfee.
Booker T's the worst.
You're wrong. It's okay.
Well, he just is. Like he just doesn't care about. Well, I say I can't like have a go at the guy who's clearly just getting paid and doesn't care about doing his job, and he can just say a few catchphrases and silly noises, and that can count as commentary. But just if there's anybody else that isn't got the name Booker T that was just yelling that stuff down the microphone, you just say just some randomer they'd signed and their first day on the job they were just doing what Booker T was doing, you'd say they suck at their job.
I mean, I can't deny that. Still, he's funny.
Yeah, there's like you saw that little like photos going around of him ordering like DoorDash in the middle of the show.
Yeah, getting chicken parm apparently from TGI Fridays, I think it was.
Chicken parm from Fridays.
That's that we've talked about that a bunch of times where it's just like that was his go-to order. I mean, chicken parm's great and all, but still. But then again, it's like, can you blame him in some ways? Like,
it was the end of the show. He's like, he wants to make sure it's hot. Like,
yeah. And chicken parm's chicken parm, yeah.
It's delicious.
Although I don't know from TGI Fridays, so I'll have to go there at some point, try that out, and see if he was justified in his pick. But I'm not going to go with him as my best. I'm going to go with Michael Cole for just like, I mean, the dude's a beast, and he is so much better without Vince like cramming things down his throat. And I feel like we are in a position. I've always thought that Michael Cole got ragged on too much, but now I think people are able to like truly see that he is a good commentator, that he just ended up having to be in that spot for the longest time that sucked. Now he gets to have fun. Now he's passionate. He jumps up and super excited about things because he doesn't have to just be locked down to the desk. Like, Michael Cole's great.
I think they're getting too. It's a little too much where they keep showing him like every pay-per-view where he's just like jumping up and down for something.
Kind of like pulling a Mario Ronaldo.
Yeah, like he's trying to do that. I will say this is the year that they finally stopped fucking around with Jimmy Smith and the guy that Tony used to say sounds like a baseball announcer.
Adnan Burke, that was his name. Yeah, today we're gonna be sponsored by Ballpark Hot Dogs, and then like,
and they just said, Michael, do Raw and SmackDown, and that I appreciate. And Michael is tremendous, and I think he's finally getting his due. But at the same time, Vic Joseph is the best.
I mean, Vic Joseph is so good too.
He's got wonderful energy. He brings like a different voice to it. He doesn't just sound like he's doing Michael Cole. And he's got the candy dish, and I don't even care about my candy. That was the funniest line when he wanted Wagner to powerbomb Breaker, and he's just like, I don't even care about my candy. Do it. I like Vic. Mackenzie, and even when it was Wade and now Booker, they're great on NXT.
I still think, and I'm going to be beating this drum until something proves me otherwise. I think that Vic should be in Kevin Patrick's spot and be grooming himself, or being groomed to be Michael Cole's replacement more than Kevin Patrick.
He shouldn't be moving up to SmackDown. The problem is, do they have anyone on NXT? Like, is there a broadcaster in developmental that's just like, hey.
I mean, put Kevin Patrick there maybe, or Blake Howard if he is potentially good, move him around to there. Have the main event thing be called by Byron Saxton if he's still around for Monday Night Raw, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm going to go with Wade Barrett as the best one.
Barrett's fun too.
Yeah, but like just as a definitive thing, it's hard to pick a good one because like all WWE commentary is like mid at best.
He win for calling out Michael Cole on his Candice Michelle thing.
Oh, that was funny.
I like that little bit where he was like Cole had asked him like, you know, did you dress up for anything for Halloween or whatever? And Barrett's like, yeah, I've got this great costume of my favorite wrestler named Bad News Barrett. And Cole says, oh, I thought you were going to try to dress up as a good commentator at some point. And then he's like, well, I would have gotten Candice LeRae's name right. Like it's immediately that back and forth is, they're not my favorite duo, but I really like how they've been growing into each other. That sounded off.
Yeah, I said Victor.
That's right. Yeah. So I was like, wait a minute. Did Rob just go ahead? Like, okay, yeah. So that means let's move on to the roster newcomer. Now, this could be somebody who is somebody brand new to the roster in the sense that they were just announced this year, or it could be somebody who had been announced as like signing to the company for like the Performance Center, but we never really got to see them do anything. And then they finally made their debut on television this year. And most of the people, honestly, this year that were brand new were actually brand new signings. There were, I don't think, almost any holdovers other than like if you were to count Gable Steveson finally having a match. But I mean, he popped up on plenty other episodes of other things, so I don't really count that. But like the types like Izzy Dame and Kaya Saint and people that we haven't even seen yet, like Tylen Register. A Hunter Smallback will pop up next year or be released, either one. But that's kind of what we're working with here. If you go to the page on smarkoutmoment.com, the roster page, anybody who is in italics is brand new for this year. And the ones that are not in the Performance Center recruits list are the ones that actually did pop up on television, like Luca Crucifino or Eddie Thorpe or whatever. But there are some main roster people that are brand new as well. And like Dragon Lee is one of them. And somebody that's a free agent, like a Jade Cargill is one, even though she hasn't actually wrestled a match. So I don't know if we're going to try to carry that over into next year and say that she's kind of 50-50 split, but I guess we'll come around to that next year. My worst that I have down, because most of them are just inoffensive, they're Performance Center recruits, so they're learning and it's hard to, be like bad mouthing a rookie. But Alexis Elite was in this group, and we don't get to see much of the Performance Center. But what we did get to see was whatever the hell she did, where there's a video that's out there where she kind of does like, I guess her attempt at like a people's elbow. And I don't know what she's trying to do, but she is like doing some kind of like cheerleading routine thing or something. And it looks horrendous.
Did she get fired?
And she gets fired, apparently.
Okay, yeah.
And she's the one that Roxanne and Cora and all them were like, yeah, she doesn't work for us anymore. And like, fuck this girl. And I guess she apparently had said like a bunch of racist things as well. So it's like, if all that stuff is true, if she's like racist, a terrible performer, a bad person, and she never cared about the business whatsoever and was saying things like getting Shawn Michaels' name wrong, and what was it, Somo Sakoma, I think is what she called Sola Sikoa. And it's like, okay, you're just making people look bad around you. You're potentially going to injure people, and you were a waste of a hire. I don't know how anybody could be worse than that.
Yeah, that was a weird, because it was after she got released that it all came out, right? Where people just started clowning on this girl.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that was very weird. Up until you said that, I'll still go with my original one, because my original one is Gable Steveson. because finally debuts after them thinking they had a fucking match for Triple H at WrestleMania at one point. They thought they had a Raw superstar on their hands. They finally
they do have a Raw superstar. It's just not Raw talent.
Yes. They thought they had all this stuff, and then he gets in the ring with Baron Corbin at the Great American Bash, and it was just like awful, and he disappeared. It's Gable Stevenson for me, but that Alexis Lee chick is definitely up there.
I mean, she seems like a horrible person, but she wasn't blocking up the airwaves at the very least. So I don't really feel bad about not giving it to her. Yeah, Gable Stevenson was one of the highest ones up for me, but I'm gonna be that guy, just Jade Cargill.
I thought you were gonna go with Pillman, just keep it that.
Oh no, it could be Lexis King. Actually, maybe it should be Lexis King. But I'm gonna go Jade Cargill just because it's clear that this signing was just a fuck you to AEW, and they've actually got no idea what to do with her.
I think people are overreacting. I think she's gonna be in the Rumble, and it's fine.
I think that they're just kind of training her in the meantime, and she's gonna pop up in the Rumble, and then she'll be better than what we've seen from her before. Yeah, but
I doubt it.
I don't know about all that, but I
think she's still gonna suck.
I don't think she's gonna be like 2,000% better, but I think that she'll have been working on it for the past few months and stuff.
What evidence from the Performance Center has ever showed you that they make someone better than what they previously were?
You don't think that there's people over the years that
they did give us
people, or nobody that was previously wrestling beforehand that has who's actually been a wrestler for several years, which is what Jade Cargill was. Yeah, I mean they've made people that had no idea how to wrestle beforehand, and they've taught them how to wrestle.
Yeah, but isn't that kind of Jade?
Well, no, because it's this really stupid argument. The reason why they're burying AEW so much for it is because they've seen her and don't think that she's particularly good for their own particular style, and so they're going to cast all dispersions on saying, oh, they didn't train her up properly and she had no idea what she was doing when she was training with Bryan fucking Danielson, apparently, at least from her interviews and giving all that stuff. Yeah, that guy clearly have no idea how to train anyone or knows anything about professional wrestling.
Who did he ever meet?
They've, for me, it's a clear indication of buyer's remorse, and they will eventually find something to do because they have to. They've invested too much money in her, probably not to have that happen. But yeah, I think that this whole her coming in, because I understand the personal circumstances surrounding her, and I know that's probably had some, not to say it had significant impact. But I think that they would have found something for her to do, or at least she would have been on television more. Whether she was wrestling or not, but doing some sort of segments or getting involved in stuff if they had real plans for her at the moment. And yeah, she might be in the Rumble. She's not winning the Rumble.
I still think there's a chance.
She's going to go. You think she's going to go into the Rumble and then she's main eventing WrestleMania in one of her first real matches?
No, they're not, because none of the women are main eventing WrestleMania. CM Punk and Seth Rollins and
right.
Well, yeah. No, but she's going to be in the women's title match for one of those ones. I think you can't really go from that to that. And also, if she does, it's going to. I'd say she's not going to embarrass herself, but she's not going to be a good match. I think that they've kind of shown that they made an investment in order to just get one over on AEW, and that's kind of it. That's the kind of impression that I'm getting with Jade Cargill. It's just an opportunity to show up AEW and not to actually improve their roster.
I think if she doesn't pop up in the Royal Rumble, then that's a sign that could be the case. But I do think that she's going to be in there. I do think that there's a chance that she wins it, because I think that they might be looking at Jade Cargill versus Bianca Belair. But
I'll go a step further. Depending on what they do with the tag titles, if she doesn't fight Bianca, she might be teaming with her.
Maybe that even?
Her.
Yeah.
Bianca said she wants to do it. And
that she wants to team with her?
Yeah. And that might be a way to hide her shortcomings.
That could be the case.
She could be Bianca's Omos.
As far as though you're asking about does anybody been better through the Performance Center? I was looking through the roster page and I'm like, yeah, now that I'm looking at him, Damian Priest I think is way better than what he was prior to before being in the Performance Center. Yeah, it's all punishment Martinez.
Yeah, that's funny.
No, I saw him plenty of times. Rigor. He was as good, if not, well, it wasn't better, but he was totally the same as he is now.
And I think Xavier Woods is better than when he was in TNA. I think, my God, all these sirens. Sorry about this, everybody.
No, Consequences was a better wrestler. And I mean, Woods is Consequences Creed was more dynamic than Woods is. He was more of like flippy guy at that point, but like he's a different style of wrestler at that point. Woods has gotten good at the WWE style.
I definitely think the Performance Center is good because it's given us, like I said, it's given us Bianca, and like that alone, she is their poster child for what that system can do. And I think Jade will benefit from it. I think saying that Bryan Danielson doesn't know what he's doing is silly, but you know,
right? I mean, because he's one of the best out there, so it's like, yeah.
But it just means like it's just the case. Like the motto for the Performance Center for me should be 1 in 50 ain't bad. That kind of approach.
You might actually be right on those numbers too.
Well, you got to throw things at the wall, see what sticks, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And sometimes people do stick, which means that they can be on our best list for this. And I know that Calvin's going to disagree. One of my runner-up type options is Lexus King. I am enjoying what he's doing. He's not my pick, but he is one of my top 5 or so. I think that Kehlani Jordan has been doing a lot better than I was anticipating that she would be, based off of the way that most of the recruits have been as of late. And she kind of took to it very quickly, and she's been improving a lot. So I'm like, shit, I like Kehlani Jordan. Like, I like her better than a lot of other people that are on the NXT roster. And that includes not even just the women's division, but a lot of the men's division superstars too. I do think that we've been seeing some solid improvement from Lola Vice. She's not my pick for that. But I mean, out of the grand scheme of the people that I'm looking at on my list and stuff, I just got to go with the easy pick and say that the best newcomer for this year was Dragon Lee.
This was his first year on the roster? That's crazy.
Yep.
He is the easy pick, and as I think about it, he'll probably be getting my vote as well, but I do want to say Kehlani Jordan is a tremendous talent. It just started not that long ago. Lola Vice is better than some in the division. I really like Danny Palmer. Not Danny Palmer, tag partner. Sol Rucka.
That's not technically her first year, though. Yeah. Okay. Danny Palmer, it is her first year. Which Danny Palmer has been doing some good stuff, too. Like
Hank and Tank, I like a lot.
I believe Tank is new, but Hank isn't. Let me double check. Hank is not new for this year, but Tank is.
You know, Eddie Thorpe, I like Carl Fredericks. I don't know, like, the gimmick isn't clicking, and I think it's throwing other things off.
DJ Tatanka in the house.
I like Big Ange. That's a fun part of Tony D and Stax's deal. But yeah, the obvious choice is Dragon Lee.
I think Dragon Lee has been the best worker of the newcomers, but again, I mean, just off the things said, he's worse in WWE than he was in New Japan. So I kind of watch him and feel like it's a bit disappointing, because he would be having much better matches with every person that he's wrestling if it was in any other promotion other than WWE. So I would probably, in that regard, go with Lola Vice, because I think that she's the most polished person that came through NXT, and is still obviously in development in NXT, but she clearly has raw potential that they're starting to mold. And I think she has like a bit of a star presence about her as well, that she developed being like a professional athlete in other roles as well. So yeah, I think that Lola Vice for me is the one from NXT that at least started this year or came through this year that has the most potential going forward.
Now you say she has raw potential. You don't think that she could go to SmackDown? I had to. It was fucking bothering me. It was such a softball joke. I needed to do it. I do think she's going to be going on the main roster this next year, by the way. I think that she and Elektra Lopez are going to be brought up, and I couldn't imagine them being brought up in the sense that they're going to get like the biggest push in the world, but I can potentially see them coming up actually pretty soon. which is weird because Lola Vice still has that title reign, title shot, not title reign, that she, can she technically use that for the WWE Women's Tag Team titles?
I mean, I guess they don't really make these things clear.
Because they've said before that people could use those breakout tournament wins for any NXT title. But then when that had happened, NXT had their own dedicated tag team titles for the women. So I don't know if maybe that's...
They clarified it.
They did say that she could?
She can, yes.
Okay, so then maybe that's what their game plan is going to be, because they don't seem to be really necessarily...
Because they're flat out, like, doing a story where Elektra is trying to get her to not use
go for the singles title,
so that they can go for the tag titles and they can be on the main roster.
Yeah. I mean, I could see them joining the Santos and Angel and Umberto group and being like a new Legado del Fantasma or something, maybe. I don't know.
I know that SmackDown was taped this week. Has that happened yet?
By the time that people are listening to this, I'm pretty sure that it will. I think that I'm publishing this episode on the 23rd on Saturday. We're recording this on the 20th, by the way, everybody. So, so I think that by then they'll have already seen that twist. If not, spoiler alert.
Good. Like that's a pairing that makes sense.
Let's move on over to a slight variation of roster newcomer, but in a different kind of way. This is something that's a category that we don't have for AEW because it's not, developmental territory and a main roster territory, but this one has the best and the worst main roster call up. So somebody who went from the NXT system or the developmental brand concept, and then they were put on Raw or SmackDown. And there's everybody that's on the page on smarkoutmoment.com that you can see in gold with a little asterisk. They are the new call-ups. Technically speaking, Bronson Reed was called up on December 19th last year, but I kept him in that range because it's like, okay, realistically, were we going to be able to say that he was a best or the worst last year when we were recording pretty much that day? It essentially means that he was a call-up for this year. You wait one more...
He's still on NXT.
Bronson Reed?
Oh, I thought for some reason I thought you said Braun Breaker.
No.
Okay.
No, I mean Braun Breaker made some guest appearances and stuff, and I'm not counting.
He was on Raw.
Yeah, I'm not counting like Carmelo Hayes is not called up to the main roster yet, just because he popped up in that SmackDown tournament for the U.S. title. It's only people that are like they stuck there, or the people that were claimed to have stuck there, but we haven't really seen them, like Odyssey Jones and stuff. So the full list, very quickly, on Raw is Bronson Reed, the Creed brothers, JD McDonough, Odyssey Jones, Veer Sangha, Indy Hartwell, Ivy Nile, Katana Chance, Caden Carter, and Zoe Stark. On SmackDown, it's Cameron Grimes, Dragon Lee, Pretty Deadly, Grayson Waller, Isla Fire, and Isla Dawn. And that's it. Not a whole lot of call-ups this year, but between those, there are actually two other people that are technically kind of called up, yet you wouldn't know it, which are Zion Quinn and Von Wagner. They drafted them to the main roster. They specifically said that they are free agents. And if you go on SmarkOutMoment.com, on WWE.com, they are still not listed as NXT superstars. They are listed as free agent main roster talent. But you wouldn't have any idea that that's the case for Von Wagner because he has just been solely popping up on NXT television on a very, weekly basis, essentially, where it's like, well, then why isn't he just an NXT star? And Zion Quinn just went and fucked off and hasn't appeared like at all. I think that maybe Von Wagner had been in like 2 matches or maybe 3 or 4 on like main event, and Zion Quinn had popped up in like 1 battle royal. And I don't understand the philosophy behind this, because if they wanted to bring them up, why didn't they do anything after all these months? And if they didn't want to bring them up, why bother to put them in that space? But that's why I've got Zion Quinn as my current like quote unquote worst main roster call up. But Alba Fire and Isla Dawn didn't do anything but lose the tag titles and then disappear. Cameron Grimes, it very quickly just became a jobber. He only gets the jobber entrances if he shows up at all, and he loses all the time. Odyssey Jones had like 3 matches, and he's been MIA, and seemingly is not going to go into this Bobby Lashley and Street Profits group, which is still like, what are they doing? And Vera and Sangha, what did they do? They've had maybe like 5 segments that say they're coming to Raw. They show up, they do like a match or whatever, and then we wait another 5 months, and then they say, they're coming to Raw.
They're coming.
Between them and Von Wagner, I mean...
Maybe that's what we're waiting for. Look, you're probably right. It probably is all of the free agents that then did fuck all. And there's a really strong part of me that's like, Alba Fire and Isla Dawn should get this because they're doing absolutely nothing. But then I think Cameron Grimes actively suffered a downgrade by being called up. Because Zion Quinn was big in the first portions of NXT 2.0, but then they kind of dropped them off. Von Wagner's still doing a lot on NXT, and Odyssey Jones wasn't ever really the breakout star in NXT. Cameron Grimes was like a featured player, and then just moved to SmackDown to do nothing. I gotta say Cameron Grimes.
Yeah, I mean, the 3 names I had listed down with Odyssey Jones, Zion Quinn, and Cameron Grimes. So I probably would go with Cameron Grimes because I feel like he's the guy that has not even just the fact that he's got such ability with him as well, and he's a good promo, and he's improved his look significantly as well, to the point where he's just like seemingly done everything that the WWE playbook would tell you to do, and then they said, nah. And then just like now he can just get the odd match on NXT every now and again. Like that's probably the best that he can hope for now is to be dropped back in NXT. Because it seems like there's no forward trajectory for him on the main roster now. So yeah, I'd say that his is the most disappointing, and so I'll give him the worst.
It's kind of like, how do you weigh it? Do you weigh somebody like a Zion Quinn that gets quote unquote called up and immediately said, never mind, and nothing happens? Or do you get somebody who they waited months for and said, like, we're going to be putting you on the main roster. Don't worry. That's what the purpose of this is. And then once he comes up, they just say you failed. Better to try and fail? Or is it better to be like, I didn't even get a chance to succeed? Cameron Grimes definitely not in a good spot right now. And not that I am, thinking that he doesn't have the talent to be able to pull himself out of it, but if they don't give him any opportunities, it's going to be really hard for him to break that mold. And sooner or later, they're just going to reach a spot where they go, all right, let's cut him from the roster because it didn't work out. And it'll be like, well, I mean, of course it wasn't going to work out. Look what you did with him. You had him pop up and just like lose a couple matches and fuck off for every couple months. Like, you didn't give him a chance.
I always feel weird about that. Like, I know the roster is substantially greater than it used to be back in the day, but how is it? Oh, we're just gonna cut you from the roster because you failed when like we didn't do anything with you. I think the terminology is not fair. You know what I mean?
It always makes me laugh when we hear the phrasing "creative has nothing," and it's like, but that's your job. The whole point of hiring writers is so they can think of ideas. The end. Like that's the point. If they are sitting around a conference table and somebody goes, man, what do we do with Cameron Grimes? And there's like 6 people and they go, I don't know. Then you go, well, then what are we paying you for? Pitch something. Put him in a tag team. Give him a story with I don't know, some kind of like, if you want to go in the route of like just copying and pasting things from the past, like if you want to give him the sympathetic, I'm the loser and I need to earn a spot on the roster type thing, or bring back the to the moon thing and see if that works on the main roster. I don't think it probably would, but do something or whatever. Don't just say, well, we put him on the roster and he wrestled 3 or 4 matches and they weren't the most amazing things that caught on immediately with the audience. So it's a wash. Stupid. But now on the best side of things, thankfully we did have some good people that had gone up to the main roster this year and carved their little niche in one way or another. I'm going to just say my best is Grayson Waller. But there are some other people that are in my like runner-up type spot. Anybody going to go Bronson Reed?
No, I'm not.
JD McDonough?
No.
Zoe Stark?
Yeah, I'd go with Zoe Stark.
Oh yeah.
I thought that her, like, at least like introduction to the main roster was the most successful. I brought her into a hot angle with one of the top stars on the Raw side of things, and yeah, I would say it's kind of curtailed now a little bit. Now she's got kind of little direction at this point, but I think that at least her initial run on the main roster was the most successful, especially from someone who I don't think really reached their full potential in NXT.
Very high up their pick.
All right, so
Creed Brothers from you?
No, I'm not. I thought about the Creed Brothers. Creed Brothers are strong.
They're like a late addition to this, and they've accomplished more than most of the other ones.
Because like they're already headlining Raw, and they were put over really strongly just in promos where people are like, "Those Creed Brothers, watch out for them." So I think they're gonna, if they keep this up, I think they have a great future. I'm in agreement with you. I'm also going Waller. Well, Dragon Lee's great.
And Dragon Lee's on my list too, yeah.
And he did, run the gamut of things. I think Waller wrestled Edge and has The Rock talking about him, and gets to do things with Cena. So like, Waller's having a fantastic run so far.
I wish the Pretty Deadly would have had a chance, but the injury kind of curtailed that. So
they're so good though. I love them too. Another one for worst that we didn't say, just real quick. Indy Hartwell.
Yeah, Indy hasn't really done anything. Yeah,
she literally went from being the NXT Women's Champion, even if it was a courtesy run. I don't care. She went from being the NXT Women's Champion, doing nothing. It's fun to at least bring that up and
justified to bring up. Like she's not even like in a position where like she and Candice are like winning the tag titles, for instance, where like that could have happened. I mean, they're not that much of a difference from Katana Chance and Kaden Carter, where it would have been like, no, of course you need to go with the KC and KC, but yeah, it's not quite been working out all that much. But then again, it hasn't really worked out much for Candice LeRae either, and she is deserving way more than what she gets. So I'm not too surprised. Let's pivot over here to the best and the worst tag team or stable. Now that we're talking about this idea of the Way and whatnot, the Way is not going to be on either of my lists for this year, and they're not really even like truly called the Way anymore. But I got a lot down for both, which is a shame because you shouldn't really have a whole lot down for worst, but when you've got teams this year, like, as we mentioned, Alba Fire and Isla Dawn, that win the NXT tag titles in the women's division, and then they really do nothing with them, except they come up to the main roster, lose to Ronda and Shayna, and then disappear. That's not a good year for that tag team. We also had Induced Share, as mentioned. They show up, they disappear, they show up a couple months later, they disappear. I've got Gallus written down. I don't quite get the appeal as much. Like, there was a chance. Like, I liked Gallus better in NXT UK, but even in NXT UK, I didn't think that they were the most amazing act. And this year in particular, they were just bland to me. Axiom and Scripps were a tag team this year. I can't not put them on the list.
Oh, that might end up being mine.
I've got Raquel Rodriguez with insert partner temporarily as one of those things to just call attention to, because my God, they love putting Raquel with a brand new person, putting the tag titles on them, and immediately shifting to another tag team afterward. It's like the 5th time that it's happened.
Well, she's got back and they got her back, so you know.
Yeah. The two, though, that I don't know which one I would give this to, and I might end up just going with a tie because it's kind of like failure on the main roster, failure on NXT. Hit Row and Schism.
I liked Schism. I do. I thought Schism was fun, you know. Hit Row is definitely an option. They came back and they really didn't do anything at all, did they?
Well, Top Dollar failed to flip over the ropes. Apparently got diagnosed with diabetes after that, so it was like a blessing in disguise. But then he got released, and then Ashanti and B-Fab disappeared for the most part. B-Fab's like hovering around that Bobby Lashley stable, and Ashanti, I guess, dropped the V part of his name and isn't even in a position where he can be losing on main event or beating an NXT person on main event because he's on the opposite brand. So I guess at best we're looking at maybe he might show up on that WWE speed thing. If they keep filming that. It's not good. Not been a good year for Hit Row. And Schism, I already talked about Ava being the worst in-ring talent for that, and Joe Gacy being awful on the mic, and they lost their 2 best members who earlier at the year were like, yeah, we want to fuck off and we don't want to be here in this place anymore.
You know what, though? My worst is going to be the OC. AJ Styles and the Good Brothers.
Bad team this year, yeah.
Because
that's for sure.
I think Callum said it when we recorded the last part. AJ Styles slipped off real bad this year, and Anderson and Gallows, you have to respect the hustle, but if they were doing anything else, anywhere else, even if it was AEW, they'd be absolutely on TV more, featured more, doing something. Wasn't Anderson just in a featured match at Wrestle Kingdom this year for the Never Openweight Championship? Like, they'd be doing more if they were elsewhere, so I'm going to go the OC.
Yeah, OC are high up for me. I've got like the Street Profits there as well. Not necessarily because like they're bad, but you know they're really not doing anything, and now they've got this silly new gimmick with Bobby Lashley, which has gone absolutely nowhere. Is doing nothing for them in a positive sense. Gallus were tag champions at some point this year, and they're just blah. Just been like nothing special. Yeah, I mean the OC. I mean, out of the ones I've got listed, I'll probably end up going with the OC. Just because there's no reason to have Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows around anymore. They should just be doing their like goofy non-wrestling stuff on Fight instead, and just be should probably don't offer much value on a major wrestling promotion anymore.
Yeah, but like I can't even say that because just a year ago they were wrestling the Briscoes and they were doing all these things in all these different promotions, and then they
can go where they want to,
but
they just don't really want to anymore.
Yeah, I guess that's what it is.
Which, if that's the case, I don't really blame them for taking a big paycheck from WWE and just sitting. You know,
Carl Anderson was still a New Japan champion at the start of this year, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, the match.
He's in the Never Openweight title match.
Yeah, but I just, even as bad as the OC had this year, I still would rather see them use them and do something with them if they were to like pull the trigger on. Like, I had thought that they could do the OC against the Bloodline at one point, and it wouldn't have been the best feud, but like they could have potentially pulled something off there. And in comparison, Hit Row is just, there's nothing, and Schism just fell apart. So I got to go with a tie, I think, on that end. Good side, though. A lot of good teams. We got some really good stuff with the Latino World Order this year. That's one of my high ups. We've I don't say it hasn't been the best year for Imperium, but they are a very prominent team. I still hate the infighting that they keep doing. I don't know why that's something that they want to tease, like that Gunther's perpetually going to get rid of one of them. I don't see the end game there. Creed Brothers doing some good stuff now. Damage Control, major option. I've been liking, not enough to pick it as my best, but I've been liking a lot of Chase University stuff this year. I wish I could say the Bloodline, but I can't. Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, very high up on my list, but I think I got to go the Judgment Day.
Diamond, I often call him Diamond Mine. Diamond Mine was an absolute failure outside of the Creed Brothers. Creed Brothers are very high up on my list. I think, they really are shining bright, and I hope they continue that. You didn't mention the Metaphor. I like
on purpose.
Metaphor. The Metaphor is my kind of cheekiness, and they're all just so good at what they do. I think they're a highlight every Tuesday night for me. But now I'm gonna go with you. My pick is Judgment Day because at one point that was like the worst thing Edge was doing, and that was like, what are they doing with this stable? They're not doing anything at all, and they keep losing. And this year they really turned it around. So Judgment Day is my pick.
You only had like two options really written down, like Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn for what they did at the start of the year, and then technically you could have the Usos as part of just like outside the bloodline for the feud they had with Roman and Solo, because that was good, and they were tag champions at the start of this year and had a great feud with Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. But yeah, the Judgment Day are the best stable of the year. They've been the focal point of all Raw, and they're basically trying to do a bloodline again, but just a Raw version of it instead.
Almost to a T, even with the comedic member of replace Sami Zayn with R-Truth.
Yeah, it's very transparent that they're like, this worked, let's copy and paste, because the bloodline isn't really hanging around this year. So let's do secondary bloodline while the real bloodline is just taking an entire year off. But hey, come Mania. Hopefully by the time we get to Mania 40, we're not talking about adding things to the worst of the year list and all like we did this year. But moving over to the best and the worst heel and babyface. Heel up first. Who's the most hated villain, or the best villain, or the worst that you think was just terrible at doing that, or just a bad character in general, or any of those kind of qualifying factors. Man, I got a lot written down for some of these. Thankfully, a lot written down for the best and some for the worst. Stop me if it's your pick. Here are my runner-ups, or my other potential options for worst heel of the year. Dabba-Kato.
He's
big. And you know what? Even fucking Axiom and Scripps can beat him. And Tyler Bate can beat him. The one thing you've got going for you is that you're big. So what do? They put him with the smallest people on the roster, have him lose, and then they fire him. Why even bother to put him on NXT? Why not just get rid of him earlier? What a waste. Brooklyn Barlow.
Who?
Yep. She was a heel. She mostly popped up on NXT Level Up, and she never really got to a spot that they felt comfortable putting her on the main roster of NXT. And then they let her go. So as far as just like execution of career talent, Brooklyn Barlow is definitely up there. Emma was a heel this year, if you believe it or not.
I do.
Lacey Evans. The one that said recently that she never gave a shit about her job. And it's like, oh, so that's why we always thought that you never gave a shit about this job. Yeah, it's pretty obvious at this point, right? Man, what a terrible year plus 2 years, whatever it was for Lacey Evans, and the way that it all ended. And go check her out on whatever subscription service that she's got now. Assuming that it's like Brand Army or something, because that's an Army thing. Valhalla is here on my list.
She's fine.
I laughed so hard on this episode of Raw this week, where she's just like this feral child running towards who was she running towards? It was Maxine, and she just like headbutts the security barricade, and it's just like, man, what a waste. Scripps was heel this year. Got to put Scripps on this list. The Scripps is Scripps.
Taking it. You might have taken it as I look at this.
Slightly higher up on my list, though, are two others. Well, technically three others. Jimmy Uso, for the latter half of this year, is, as far as like being like a top heel and being disappointing, Jimmy would get that kind of spot, because, man, he looks worse than ever. And I don't know what they are doing with this whole character. But I can't give it to him in the sense that, like, beginning of the year, he was great. I just don't know what they're doing now. My real pick, though, and I've been saying these names a lot, it's a tie between Ava Raine and Joe Gacy.
God, you just really didn't like Schism.
Yeah, hated it.
No, that's not my pick. My pick for worst heel, probably, the more I think about it, because, man, they gave you every advantage in the world. Austin Theory.
He is definitely somebody that can be brought up.
You were like the last guy that was on camera associated with Vince. Like, you had every advantage. How are you not doing more?
Two names immediately come to mind, two of my absolute least favorites in many ways. Lexus King, of course, because he just sucks in every way.
I like
and Karrion Kross.
That's a good one too,
because he sucks pretty much in every way as well. I'd probably go Karrion Kross, because at least Lexus King has only just started. We know what we're getting with Karrion Kross now, and it's never going to be any good.
How many times do they need to have him, after about like an 8-week period, have a vignette where he's like, oh, now I'm going to start kicking ass. And then he like loses a match in the next 2 weeks and then disappears again.
If they don't ditch it, I'm interested in what Friday's vignette was. Because, well, I talked about it off camera with Tony, but
the little tease that it could be potentially
I think it's Paul Ellering and AOP.
Yeah.
And I'm like, fuck it, fine. I like Paul Ellering. Like, do something with that.
It'd be kind of weird if they're like, we know the problem with Karrion Kross. It's that you need somebody to be like a manager type, and Scarlett's like sitting there right there. And they're like, we got to have somebody, come out with you. They don't need to wrestle or anything. They could just be coming with you, part of the package deal. And she's like, excuse me. And they're like, yeah, shut up. So we need somebody that can, talk for you, maybe bring up a little bit more of a presentation. She's still got her hand raised. I know who would look really good sitting next to you and really draw some attention. And she like sits up in her chair. They're like, Paul Ellering. we need that guy back. Yeah, maybe we're talking about some kind of Karrion Kross AOP stable being like a good thing next year that turned things around. But at least for 2023, Kross had a bad year. So that's a vote for Austin Theory, a vote for Karrion Kross, and a vote for Schism's Ava and Joe Gacy.
I was just Schism.
Yeah, it's basically Schism in general. Although I didn't dislike the dyad as much, so I kind of have to single out that it's mostly Ava and Joe. On the best side of things, we might end up having a 3-for on this one. I don't know for sure, but we'll see about this. I've got a couple runner-ups. Tiffany Stratton, runner-up for me.
She's great.
It's like my number 6 pick or so. Logan Paul, very good heel this year. Still Roman Reigns in the mix, although I wouldn't give him the pick. I think that Grayson Waller has been a really good heel this year. And I would have gone with Gunther. But Dominic Mysterio's out there.
It's Dom. I'm going with Dom as well. Are you going with Dom, Callum?
No, I'm going Logan Paul.
That's fair. I'm going with Dom because he was so bland as a babyface.
Mm-hmm.
And it's good to see that he has some character. Yeah, like he's not the most polished guy in the ring. I'm not like, oh, I can't wait to see what he does when he gets in the ring with CM Punk. But
he's better. Like he's gotten a lot better.
Getting better.
And
skipped NXT. He went back this year.
Went back to NXT and was arguably one of the biggest people that was on the brand and doing a great job with that. He had the ex-con Dom stuff at the beginning of the year. He's got the whole mommy stuff with Rhea Ripley. He's been like, if you're talking about who gets the most heat, even though some of it's definitely piped in and they definitely lower the microphone volume and all, but like he still gets like a better heel reaction than most people, and it's fun to boo him. And they turn into the skid with everything with that, so that it becomes something where it's not like, oh, boo, I hate this fucking guy when he comes out. It's more like, boo this little shithead. And I loved, I don't know what it was that I saw, but I saw like this little, they were being interviewed for something, and it was Ripley and Dom, and they were asked about like some like soccer player or a baseball player or somebody, and Dom immediately goes, oh, who did he ever beat? I bet he doesn't even have a mullet as good as mine. He probably doesn't have a mullet at all. It's like, oh, this kid's great. Love Dom. Gunther, as far as like the most like dominant, monsterish heel types, and Logan Paul, that gets Callum's pick. So talk a little bit about Logan Paul.
Well, I just think the Dominic's one is more on the lines of it's just fun to dislike him, whereas he doesn't actually do anything, I think, much himself beyond the Rey Mysterio stuff earlier in this year. He doesn't actually do much to make himself a heel. He's not a particularly good promo still. And yeah, he's getting better in the ring, but he's still not anything great. Whereas Logan Paul, the secret behind Logan Paul being a dick is the fact that he is a dick, and he's really good at portraying that. But then he's also really good, so you kind of like begrudgingly, you almost hate him even more, because why you can't be so good but then also be such a huge dick as well. It's like with Dominic, you always know there's going to be a scene with him, whereas Logan Paul could realistically, if he put his mind to it and wanted to devote more time to it, he could be WWE champion one day. And that would make people hate him even more. Like, he'd become the most detested person ever if he became WWE champion.
It's weird to think that he has proven himself in such a short time, where I would rather him be a WWE champion than some of the WWE champions that we've had in the past.
I'd rather he be world champion right now than Seth Rollins.
He'd get more heat, I think.
That's a
Feel
really
more
interesting thing we're going to have to talk about. Because Rollins had a very bland year, didn't he?
Theoretically, it could happen in 2024. It wouldn't shock me if Logan Paul won that title. All kind of depends on if they get rid of Roman holding two of them hostage. Which, I mean, I don't know what's going to happen this year as far as like, if, fingers crossed, Cody wins the belts at Mania. Are they going to then still have two titles, or are they going to have a merger? Are they going to get rid of the Universal title? Now they have the World Heavyweight title. Like, but if we have a state where there's two world champions and they can kind of play around with it a little bit like they used to, we could be looking at Logan Paul being a WWE champion by the end of the year. Could happen. Let's move over to the baby faces. The good guys, good girls, pat them on the back in one way or another, except for the worst list. Then you kick them in the ass out the door. And there are a whole lot of people, again, to talk about. People that are from the range of like just really poor baby faces. Like you don't want to cheer for them because who the fuck are they and why should I give a shit? People that are poor baby faces in the sense that, yeah, I don't think that that's a good person. People that are bad baby faces in the sense that they suck as an overall performer. Stop me if it's your pick. Let's run down some of these here. As far as bland side of things go, Apollo Crews didn't do anything this year. Dante Chen is like a do-nothing member of the roster. Dana Brooke, high up on my list. And I feel bad for that because we've been saying for years about like the narrative for Dana Brooke has basically been, I feel bad, but and eventually, you know, she finally got the axe this year, but the pink slip came at the worst spot, right? When she's turning heel, and it could have been like finally a story about how she has been like sucking. And they could have turned it around and they were like, oh, we finally are doing something with this. Never mind. So I feel bad for that. So I'm not going to give it to her for that. On the bland side of things, Natty every year is just sort of going through the motions. Wasn't really super digging Tegan Nox this year either, but at least she was more interesting than Natty. Gigi Dolan on my list of worst baby faces because it was basically, my brother's here. It's like, I don't give a shit. Like, why am I supposed to be all invested in this? Your brother's in the crowd? Who the fuck's your brother? I don't care about him. Guru Raj.
Okay.
You know?
We really have to establish, like, some of these people just exist.
Yeah.
In our faces.
No, I mean, that's, you know, do you go with people that are in your face bad, or do you go with people like Shanky, who didn't even really exist this year? He's on my list too. I think that Valentina Feroz and Ulyssa Leon were one of the most underwhelming babyface groups out there. Not going to give that to them, though. There's 3 other people on my list. So any of those, anybody that had picked? I don't think so, right?
No.
Actually, there's 4 other people on my list. I'm forgetting that the one that I actually picked for the worst. So my 4 remaining people, this one maybe will ruffle a little bit of feathers, but I don't like Nathan Fraser's character at all. And when he just goes out and he's all like, yeah, well, I'm going to fight you in a match. And then he loses. I'm like, man.
I just want you to lay off him a little bit. I'm not saying he's great. Just like, put off the gas a little bit.
I want them to repackage him. And at this point, maybe put him in a mask with Axiom, make them a tag team, because it's just not working for me. But more egregious examples that, like, you know, I would put way higher up on worst babyface list than a Nathan Fraser, who's just sort of like on the bland side. Gable Steveson.
Yeah, that'd be at least like in consideration for me as the choice.
Yeah. I didn't consider him a babyface, but I guess WWE did.
Yeah, he was firmly positioned as the babyface in that feud with Baron Corbin. And the crowd immediately was like, nope.
The crowd was like, no, fuck you.
They're like, let's go Corbin, beat this guy's ass.
Not Angle.
Right. So that was like a disaster of a babyface run there. Quincy Elliott was a babyface this year.
He's on TV this year. Lie to me.
I think he might have popped up twice. I know at the very least he popped up for being one of the members of the Masked People that was very clearly not the Creed brothers. Remember that little spot? Where it was like...
that's right. They're like, oh, you're obviously Quincy Elliott. That's right.
Right, because it's like, yeah, I don't think that you are either of the slimmer white guys on the roster. Like, I'm double checking to see if Quincy Elliott had any true matches this year that were broadcast. I would assume it's probably Level Up more than anything else. So he was on 4 matches this year. He wrestled Level Up in February, where he was beaten by the person who I am going to pick. He wrestled in a North American title qualifying battle royal in March. He lost to Cale Dixon on Level Up in May, and he lost alongside Ike Manjiro to Hank and Tank in July on Level Up. But at the beginning of the year, he lost to my pick. Worst babyface of the year is Scripps.
He really is. Really is tempting every single time, every single category for worst. I feel bad 'cause I liked Reggie. Don't like this. But no, I'm not gonna go with scripts. I'm not even gonna go Gable Steveson. I'm gonna go with the guy who's more recent babyface, but should just never be babyface. The Miz. Miz should never, ever, ever be babyface. I like The Miz. Doesn't mean he needs to be a good guy, because I saw this on Twitter. I forget the person who tweeted it, but it was perfectly said. Every character quality he has and his entire lore goes out the window when you try to make him a good guy. He's not a good guy. Just stick with him as a heel.
I think that outside of the ones that have already mentioned, because most of those ones go into it, the only other ones that stick to mind, it just depends on your opinion of Babyface, but like Tony D'Angelo and
oh yeah, fuck them, they kill people.
They kill people, and they're
sometimes you gotta, you can't make an omelet without breaking a few eggs.
Also, Dexter Loomis stalks people. So is he a babyface as well?
Well, they took him off TV. They need to think about that with Tony D and Stacks.
Look, I'd be lying if I didn't say that there was not one part of the year where I said I could make a phone call and get somebody killed. So I'm gonna give a little bit of leeway to Tony D.
But yeah, I'll probably go with Gable Steveson just for that, like the visceral reaction to his match with Baron Corbin. It's just a demonstration of like, yeah, you tried to position this guy as a babyface and it failed spectacularly, as it should.
For a big project of a person too, not even like, man, that Jada Parker didn't get a babyface reaction. It's like, no, this is Gable Steveson. You signed this dude a couple years ago and you made him a big deal.
He's AEW's Anthony Ogogo on steroids.
Yeah.
Not him literally on steroids, but obviously it's a bigger deal than the Anthony Ogogo one. But
that's a really good analogy, though. That's like they're on par with each other for that. Yeah. At this point, can we just get rid of the fucking next in line?
No,
that's the thing that's actually going to save them. That's the thing. That's the thing that's actually building them up, because now they are training people that have absolutely no idea what they're doing.
But none of them have been transitioning into an NXT star.
They're counting names.
They will eventually.
And they're counting names like Bianca and Big E as examples of what they can do for that.
This is them actually taking the step, which again I wouldn't necessarily agree with, but like they are taking the steps now to establish who they are, which is WWE is the place that trains up people in a particular style, big athletes, and trains them in a certain style that they can just perform on television over and over again and rehearse matches for 10 hours and then put them out on NXT or some other show. Like, that's their style now. And that's fine. It means the more room for the other companies to sign like the indie wrestlers.
I'll be shocked if by the end of 2024 that we have any of the people that have been signed for the past 3 years for the NLI.
I'll go on the opposite side then. I'll bet by the end of this year, what somebody was started as part of the Next in Line program is a champion in WWE.
Let's try to remember that for
that's gonna be,
and that counts NXT as well. It's not just WWE.
Yeah, I would assume. Yeah. But I mean, I don't have any idea who any of these people are, but I'm like, man, I've seen these Cavender twins popping up for the past couple of years and they haven't done anything but celebrate on an episode of NXT one time. So I'm just assuming that none of them are actually going to amount to anything because nobody ever seems to transition over, but maybe we got the next big babyface or something coming out of there. Best babyfaces. Let's talk about those. Thankfully, a lot of good ones. Again, as always, stop me if it's your pick. But I'll toss out all my picks that I'm not going with here. Bianca Belair. Always a really, really, really good babyface. Not necessarily her best year, but I mean, given what she has done in previous years and stuff, that's kind of like, wow, you had an A- year. Like, you took some time off. Well deserved. Chad Gable, hell of a babyface this year. His run against Gunther, his funny shtick with Alpha Academy, really good stuff. Jey Uso, major option for me here. Didn't go with him, but talk about a guy that made the right career move to escape the stagnant bloodline thing and move out on his own, and that it's worked. Like, the crowd goes nuts for him. Main event Jey Uso is less of a thing to laugh at anymore, and just kind of like, okay, Jey Uso, fuck yeah, man. Give him that IC belt or something. Big fan of Kevin Owens as always. Big fan of Sami Zayn as always. You can't disregard the major babyface momentum that they had this year. The beginning of the year, the babyface turn from Sami Zayn, and the feud with Roman Reigns, the tag title win and all. I would assume that there's a chance that either of you guys might have picked them. Did you?
I picked Sami Zayn.
Yeah. So let's talk about him.
Well, I think that every big babyface moment, like the biggest babyface reactions all this year, pretty much came to Sami Zayn for the most part. I know that we'll mention other people. I won't mention any of the other ones that you've got listed down just yet, but Jey Uso obviously has the big hand wave thing down with the crowd, and that's cool. That's a cool visual to see. But Sami Zayn turning, the SmackDown before Montreal, WrestleMania, him wrestling in Saudi Arabia the first time in front of those people that absolutely treated him like a god. I think that Sami Zayn is the most affable guy on the roster, and somebody who should have been world champion this year and hopefully will be world champion sometime next year. But they need to do something with this guy in terms of like real main event status, because like he's one of the top guys they've got.
I really want him to win that world title next year.
I thought he had a good shot at maybe walking out of Mania with it until Punk came back.
I'd have been down for it, depending on who he would have gone up against.
I would have gone with, honestly, he could have fought anybody.
I want to shout out Thea Hale for her work in Chase University.
Amazing. I'll say this. I like Thea Hale, the plucky baby face. I'm hitting a line now where I'm very uncomfortable with this Thea Hale thing, because they're literally doing Thea Hale goes through puberty, and I'm like, please stop. She's an adult. Please. This is super uncomfortable to watch as a 30-year-old. She's an adult. Can we not act like she's just like
a 13-year-old or something? Yeah, it is kind of funny that you phrased it like that, because I didn't think about it. But they've had her do the I'm in school, I'm a teacher's pet, and then they go into I've got a bad girl as a friend of mine that's a bad influence, and then now she's having a crush over a boy
for the first time. It's weird.
But it's as stupid as the NXT stuff is, it still works better for Thea than so many other things that they do. Like, I have more fun watching Thea doing this kind of oddball stuff than like a Lyra Valkyria going out there being like, I'm the biggest baby face in the women's division and I'm the champion. And I'm like, okay, but why should I cheer? And then Thea's like, I got a crush on this boy. And it's like, I hope they go on a date. It's so dumb. Which apparently, Blair Davenport is engaged to him now. Like, wasn't she dating Will Ospreay? I guess not.
Been dating for a while. I didn't know she was dating and now engaged to Riley Osborne. Shout out to them.
Yeah, that goes to show how much attention I pay to people dating people in pro wrestling and celebrities in general. Some other people from NXT that deserve to get a shout out in my mind: Carmelo Hayes, and Trick Williams, great babyface,
especially.
Trick is more so than Carmelo, yeah. Wes Lee, all of babyface this year for NXT. My top two, though, are on the main roster, and my runner-up is LA Knight. Crowd reaction is one of those things you just cannot deny.
All right, so we're gonna have the same pick.
Oh, we are? We're both gonna go Idris Onofe?
No, I was going to go Malik Blade. Damn.
It's Cody Rhodes.
It's absolutely Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes is such a genuine human. I don't. Every time I was disappointed as I am that he lost at Mania. Every time I see anything he does, like with a fan or anything, it's just like, oh my god, strap the belt on this guy, strap the rocket to this guy, and let's go because you're running out of time. Like, there was this cute story where somebody wrote him a book, like a little kid wrote him a book about how, hey, it's okay and there's always next year. And like, it's just like, yeah, he's everything that was good about John Cena in his peak. Strap the rocket to Cody Rhodes already.
And the fact that he hasn't lost steam is a big thing. Because very easily it could have just been, he lost at Mania, what a schlub, and I don't care anymore. And yeah, there's critics that do try to push that narrative of like, well, see, now you want him to win even more, which I disagree with fundamentally. But the fact that the people didn't stop responding, and there are still massive reactions to the whole, like, gotta finish this story and do that. And people are like, fuck yeah, man, give the belt to Cody. Make him a top star, like put him in matches with people, and people are like, I don't see the arguments that I see from a lot of other people where, you know, like when Dolph Ziggler finally became champion, people quickly turned on, oh, why is he the guy? He's never really been all that good and whatever. And now, technically speaking, that might end up happening when it comes to Cody winning the belt.
Once he gets it.
Yeah, if he wins it. But they could have also done the same thing this year with, okay, he's winning too many matches and I'm sick and tired, he can't even win the title kind of a thing. But I believe the statistic was something like he wrestled 108 matches this year and won 103. And I don't hear anybody going like, they're pushing him down my throat. Because also keep in mind, Roman Reigns wasn't champion yet for the Royal Rumble that he won in 2015. And people were like, anyone but Roman, you're pushing him down our throats. Very easily could have been the case with Cody, and people are just like, nope, love the guy.
Yeah, and I think, not that I want to give them any credit for this ever, but maybe having Roman not here and defend as much has kind of helped that, because you'll see when he did defend against LA Knight, there was a huge wave of like, I think LA Knight's the guy. Nobody's as hot. And I was just like, no, it's not LA Knight. Never LA Knight. And I'm glad they're seemingly sticking with Cody.
So that's a vote for Sami Zayn. 2 votes for Cody. Anything you want to talk about with either Cody or LA Knight, though, Callum?
I think you've covered it pretty much. No, they're both definitely high up there in the conversation, but yeah, I'd still put Sami up at both of them.
So now we got to talk female superstar of the year, best and worst, male superstar of the year, and overall superstar of the year. So the reason I'm lumping these all together, for anybody who's never checked out the previous things, it's kind of superfluous to do the discussion and then when we get to superstar of the year, be like, and my pick is the one I already talked about. So without spoiling anything necessarily, we're going to go on the worst side of it for the female superstar. And then we're going to talk about whether your male superstar was the worst or your female, and then your overall on that front, and kind of, back and forth a little bit on that. My worst female superstar of the year came down to a couple different options. B-Fab was one of the options, just for a contributing nothing at all. Lacey Evans for her just disappearing act and the issues that came around from that, and then basically bad-mouthing her entire career when she's left. Ronda Rousey, high up on my list. Valhalla is the disappointing, whatever. And of course, there's a million other people that are not a million. There's not a million people on the roster, but lots and lots of other people that are just like, they don't do anything. So I could have mentioned them, but my worst female superstar of the year is somebody I've mentioned many times before. It is Ava Raine.
Yeah, you really gotta let go of the schism.
Well, that's what they did this year, thankfully, so I won't have to talk about it next year. Ava Raine, she, in the ring, character-wise, microphone skills, purpose for, like, accomplishing anything, there wasn't a single thing that she did this year that was good. And I wish that that wasn't the case, because, man, I wish we had female The Rock just kicking ass.
But I think that's exactly why this is always a little doomed from the start.
Maybe for some people,
The Rock's 1 in a million.
But I don't even compare her to her dad anymore. I just compare her to other people on the roster.
Yeah, once she got in the ring, that's
yeah. And it's like, she's not going to be her dad, so I'm not going to do that. But man, if you're talking like mic skills and you're like, you get run over on the mic by even somebody like a I don't know, like an Ariana Grace is more comfortable on the mic, and you're like, she's had way less time. And then you talk about the in-ring work and you're like, I'd much rather watch a Tatum Paxley match, or I don't know, there was some people, Fallon Henley, way better in the ring than Ava Raine is, you know, like, so across the board, Ava Raine's my worst female superstar. And I will say that she is one of the 2 contenders that I have for the worst overall superstar. The other one is my male pick, so I'll talk about them in a minute. Who do you guys have for your worst female superstar? And if they are your worst overall, then obviously talk about that too.
I was thinking about Lacey Evans, because Lacey Evans really fell off the wagon this year.
She's drinking again.
But no, it's Ronda. How the fuck did you take Ronda Rousey? I said this on one of the last recordings. How'd you take Ronda Rousey and make her just an ineffective, boring, every woman on the WWE roster? Like, she was in the throwaway women's match at Mania. She's Ronda fucking Rousey. A huge just failure on WWE's part, even if she wasn't totally in the zone for it. And she would never make my worst. But Charlotte Flair, this was her worst year. I think so. I know it sounds harsh now that she's injured, but I would have said that even if she wasn't.
So there's a few options. I think people will are being way too lenient on Maxine Dupree as, like, the fun little side character thing, but she can't wrestle, and so they're just putting her out there to wrestle when she should just be a manager, really. Nia Jax is back. That's never good.
Raquel Rodriguez has it back.
Which apparently is good.
Just looking on BFAB, obviously, but she doesn't do anything to be, like, offensive or not. It kind of really does come down to either Ronda Rousey as being, like, this big name that really just dwindled into nothingness throughout the course of the year, and Ava Raine for being probably the de facto worst wrestler from the women's side of things for this year, instead of someone who was, like, featured somewhat prominently. So I'll probably go Ronda, because it's a bigger name person who just, as I say, they just didn't do anything with her notable, and you could tell pretty much from almost like WrestleMania time onwards that she was just completely checked out in everything that she was doing. So yeah, I'd probably go with Ronda instead. Not my worst of the year, though, in terms of just overall worst of the year.
And Rob, your worst female wasn't your overall worst?
No.
Okay, so men's front of that. But on the positive side of things, let's talk about the best female super.
And just say Rhea Ripley. Is it Rhea Ripley around?
It's Rhea Ripley for me. Yeah.
I had 3 options written down, but yeah, it's Rhea Ripley, the one that I chose. But I mean, the other 2 ones I thought were honorably mentioned would be Becky Lynch and Tiffany Stratton, I'd say.
They were two of my 4 to round out my top 5. The other ones being Roxanne Perez, other than the anxiety angle, just as far as like, if Roxanne's going to be wrestling in a match, I know that it's going to be one of the better ones in NXT. And then also Zoe Stark for the amount of stuff that she had done. But yeah, I mean, it's Rhea Ripley for the best female superstar. Come on. Despite like weird. Not having like a real title reign, she still managed to be the best because it's just her presence and character work and all that like shined way above everybody else. But that's what you're going for about like how weird it is, right?
Well, no, I'd say it's a little weird that we, like, as part of those ones, no one's mentioned Io Sky at all.
Oh God, yeah. I don't know why I didn't have that.
Had a better back half of the year, but Rhea Ripley had a better year.
I would put Io over Roxanne on my list, so let me take Roxanne off of that for that.
You had a better back year.
Sure did.
I wonder if they have like inside jokes about that backstage, and like if they kind of know that they're stupid with this.
I would love it if like Michael Cole just said at one point, just like, we're gonna head to the back, and then the camera just cuts to Rodriguez's back.
Yeah, that'd be great. Rhea Ripley's not my best overall superstar of the year, though. Is she for other you?
No.
All right, so then let's pivot over to the male best and worst to talk about that, because we are going to be potentially talking about our, for both of your ends, the best and the worst are both on the male. And my best is on the male, and my worst is 50%, split with Ava Marie. My worst superstars of the year on the male side of things, a couple options that I had. Some of my options were Dabba-Kato.
Yeah.
Yeah, as far as just like pure failure across all fronts. Elias.
Oh yeah.
Name that hasn't been brought up yet on this podcast this edition, nor pretty much any time for this year, because Elias this year was doing nothing. They decided to pair him off with Rick Boogs, and then they were like, you know what? This tag team's not going to get a chance to even start. We're going to separate you, and we'll figure it out, because, you know, we're still going to kind of tease that, you know, you're a free agent. You can pop up anywhere. And then we're not going to have you pop up anywhere. You're fired. For that matter, Rick Boogs is on my list as one of the potentials.
Rick Boogs might be higher up on my list because of the stuff he said afterwards.
Yeah, that kind of retroactively made it worse, because at first it was like, man, you're not giving Boogs a chance. And then he's all just like, conspiracy theory, this kind of stuff and all this. And you're like, man, I get why you didn't give him a chance. Shout out to Mason Mansour for being fun after they got released and, you know, turning it around.
Talk about Power Alpha Lacey Evans podcast with Mandy Rose. They're just like, yeah, we're all power alphas here. Okay.
Power alphas? That's what, okay.
Yeah, I think Mandy does a podcast, I think, with Tino Vitelli.
Sabatino Bescatelli?
And they were all like, yeah, we're power alphas and we're, you know, strong in WWE. I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, really, what the fuck?
All right, you want to trademark power alphas right now and take that to the NWA or what? Like,
I think Mandy will end up back in WWE.
I think Mandy's either going to end up in WWE or she's going to end up in a place like an Impact or something where she'll be like a big deal for a short time frame. But I don't think at this point that Lacey's going to be back in wrestling. If she hated it so fucking much and never liked it and all, she'll probably just keep running her side gigs and
she'll come back.
What, on like OnlyFans or?
On some wrestling platform, she'll come back.
Speaking of Von Wagner and Raquel, and if you get the joke, no. Some of the other people that I have on my worst potentials: Quincy Elliott, we talked about him quite a bit. Shanky, Riddick Moss, abject failure this year. Shame, because he's got more talent than they really did, and like he's a guy that I would like to see them hire in another company and see what he could do. Joe Gacy is not getting my pick but he is one of the worst that was out there this year. The two that really was back and forth with for me were, for the male superstar, Worst, Scripps, and the one that I decided to go with, Top Dollar.
Who's hotter?
Lotta.
Yeah, I thought about Scripps. I thought about all those kind of guys, like the Scripps, the people we regularly clown around about. I'm gonna say this, and you're gonna go, "Boo! What the fuck?" I genuinely think my worst overall, because it jumped the shark, full blown. Go Roman. Like this year did nothing for me after WrestleMania, and you held everything up. Like everything is held up. Everybody's like, "Oh, he's gonna break Hulk Hogan's record." Look, at least fucking Hulk Hogan was being advertised for live events, and things still revolved around Hogan. This has literally been, wait for Roman to come back, then we'll tell you things matter again, and then he'll go away and shut up.
They're giving him a Fabulous Moolah title reign where they're like, she's been holding the belt for 38 years.
22 years. It's like, I think I'm going to go Roman. It really jumped the shark for me. And everybody knows I do like Roman Reigns. But this year, wasn't it?
It was a big middle finger.
It was a big middle finger. And I'm like tired of it.
So, a few names that haven't been mentioned so far that I think could be potential for worst. Austin Theory.
Good option.
Just, had an awful match at WrestleMania. Had one of the worst title reigns all year. And he's only now starting to find his feet as the understudy in a tag team. You've already mentioned Quincy Elliott, of course, but I've got to say, like Lex King, of course, Lex King's got to be an option for this one. He's just nobody. Like they've signed another dud. He doesn't even I think they've signed a dud there completely and utterly. Like there's nothing about him that I think translates to a future guy that's going to be a big deal on the main roster. But I think I've got to go with Gable Steveson.
That's a good option.
Yeah, I should add him down on one of my potentials too.
Just because, just beyond the fact that he obviously sucks and he's not shown any real improvement and everyone hates him. It's the fact that he's just a despicable human being that probably shouldn't even be walking the streets, let alone in a WWE contract. So
I always love when Callum just opens up. It always tickles me. He's never wrong either. That's the beauty of it.
All I'm saying is that if the stuff that you were found innocent on have now been rectified, so people now can't be found innocent for the same reasons, then you probably shouldn't be. You probably should be guilty.
I'll be honest. I didn't know that aspect. That's a very good argument you make there, Callum.
Wait, so what's the situation? Because I haven't paid much attention. I know little bits and pieces.
I don't want to go into the big details about it because I don't think it's like people who know the situation. But essentially,
like, what was the most recent update about all that?
Well, essentially, it was back when it originally happened, and there was some loophole that gave him a reason for not being found guilty of. Well, let's just say rape. Yeah, that's essentially what it is, sexual assault or anything in those sort of boundaries. Basically, there's a loophole that got him away from being convicted of it. And then they closed that loophole pretty soon afterwards. So yeah. I just think that
it's pretty gross.
That, he's a bit of a scummy person, and he does, let's say, the fact that WWE lauded him for as long as they did upon signing him and tried to put him onto the main roster immediately, then realised that he wasn't any good. His brother is significantly better than he is, and even he's now having to be part of a group that's not really doing anything in NXT. But Gable Stevenson's just been a huge disappointment, and it couldn't have happened to a nicer guy.
So between the worst being the overall superstar for me, it's between Top Dollar and Ava Raine And it's hard for me to pick between them because it's like, well, Top Dollar constantly talks about how, like, well, people don't understand how great he is. And it's like, no, that's just because we don't agree. And that botch that he had done and getting released and all, like, that compounds quite a bit. Not being able to contribute anything real positive is just a major contender kind of rationality. And then Ava, I've talked about her a million times and all. So I think that, like, there's a part of me that wants to say Top Dollar's the worst because he's older. He had more time on the main roster to be able to potentially do something. And he's caused more of a stink. Whereas Ava, third part of me wants to go with and say, yeah, but you know what? Everything that Ava's done has been just really bad, and the only reason why she hasn't been released is because she's The Rock's daughter, and they're just like, here's something for you to do. You can say that you're Shawn Michaels' administrative secretary or whatever, and we don't want to fire you yet, kid, because you got that last name. And
has she even, like, have they actively said what she's doing for Shawn, or is it just like, I'm gonna go talk to him because I've got stroke?
I don't think that they've ever really given her like a, you know, she's like an ambassador or like a, she's a, what did they used to call Eve Torres when she was like the understudy for Teddy Long or whoever? She wasn't like a commissioner or something, but like they gave her some kind of a title, right?
Yeah, it was something
like assistant to the general manager or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't think that they've done anything like that for Ava. It's basically just been like 1 week. People are like, well, I'm going to go talk to Ava because she's got Shawn Michaels' ear. And it's like, she does? When the fuck did that happen? You know? Doesn't her dad hate Shawn? I'm like, well,
about healing in NXT, damn it.
So yeah, switching over to the best male superstar of the year, then of course the best overall superstar of the year. A lot of names that I could speed run here that we've already talked about, that, like, you know, best baby faces, best heels and all. NXT types of guys like Carmelo and Trick, good stuff there. Chad Gable, Dominic Mysterio is definitely in my one of my best superstars of the year. Jey Uso, Kevin and Sammy. It came down to mostly 2 people for me, and LA Knight. I should mention LA Knight being like one of the better like names of the year and all, but it mostly came down to 2 people for me. As far as like accomplishments, in-ring stuff, breaking a record and all, very, very solid runner-up option for me is Gunther. But I'm going to go Cody Rhodes.
I'm going to echo that. Gunther, runner-up, hell of a year. One of the best in-ring years from anybody in WWE, but Cody really clinched it this year, where like he, like we said before, he could have just said, okay, I didn't do it, but I was in the main event, you know, like he could have thrown out every excuse and every like whatever, and he just stayed steadfast with like, nope, I'm gonna finish the story. Just wait, I'm not fighting Rollins. It's a nice belt, maybe I'll win it later, but I have to win this one first. And he's only gotten more popular. I'm going Cody Rhodes.
It puts me in a bit of a bind now because I assumed one of you was going to go with Gunther. Because I feel like Gunther should win one of the Wrestler of the Year awards, if ever it's come from August. So I kind of feel like I'm compelled to do it.
Well, he got the 3 for best title reign from us.
He got the 3 for best match, didn't he?
I think so. Or no, maybe not.
I picked Sammy and
you picked
I
the
picked
tag match,
Sammy
right?
and Kevin versus
Did he get a 3 for best in ring work? Maybe.
No, because I picked actually, I might have picked him. I'm trying to remember because I picked either him.
I'm
or
almost
Dragunov,
certain
I can't remember.
you did. I said,
yeah, I probably did, but I can't remember if it was like him or Dragunov I picked.
We recorded this yesterday, and I already fucking forget.
Yeah. Someone will be able to tell us in the comments or whatever. But yeah, I mean, because my choices are either Gunther just because of the stellar year he's had, or Sami Zayn to go for the two-peat after him being the top one last year. Because I think that at least at the start of the year in particular, he was the top guy, or one of the top guys in the company. I know that's kind of cooled off to think, but I think he's still one of the most over guys in the company by a considerable margin. Yeah, Cody has obviously won the Royal Rumble earlier this year, but just from a strict kayfabe thing, I know that's not really what we go for, but just for a strict kayfabe thing, he didn't really do much this year. Like, he beat Brock Lesnar a couple of times, which is a big deal, but he also lost to Brock Lesnar and then was stuck in a never-ending feud with the Judgment Day, and then now into a feud with Shinsuke Nakamura over some reasons. But yeah, so I think that I'm going to go with Gunther just because I think it's only right that Gunther does win this type of award because he's had such a stellar year.
Hard to disagree. The only reason I'm going Cody over Gunther is Cody has really stamped it where it's like he's the guy.
Alrighty,
Yeah.
well,
That's Cody's my overall. Is Cody your overall?
Yep, Cody's my overall. I was, if I went overall to mention Rhea Ripley as well on the women's side of it, strong contender on that front, everything too. But yeah, it's Cody for me in the co-ed side of things and on the male side of it. Main eventing WrestleMania, the disappointment that he lost, the continued support after that, good ring work, great promos, all around. That's who they should be, as you said, strapping the rocket to. And man, in a perfect world, we could have gotten Cody Rhodes beating Roman at WrestleMania 39 and Gunther winning the Royal Rumble in 2024 and beating Cody at Mania for the belt in WrestleMania 40 or something. And that's not how it's played out yet. So, but Gunther, major shout out to him. Hell of a superstar this year. And I'm expecting that Gunther is going to have a really, really good 2024 too. So a lot of these people, Jey Uso, hopefully you'll have a really good 2024. Maybe we'll finally get Chad Gable winning the Intercontinental or the United States title. Maybe Sami Zayn will win that world title. Maybe Rhea's going to do even better stuff. And the continued progression of Dom, pay attention to these people, but keep in mind, who knows who's going to be around, and maybe this is going to be
is a big free agent year.
It's a big free agent year. We got people like CM Punk who could have like a major impact on our best and worst of the year. Maybe he gets into a fight backstage and we have a brawl out type of thing in WWE that we could talk about. Maybe he ends up having a hell of a championship run, or maybe they do sign an MJF or something. I don't really think that's going to be the case, but who knows? I don't know. We got 12 months to figure it out. So that does wrap up the end of the year awards, not only just for the performers side of it, but for the WWE and the AEW sides. 2023 recapped, best and the worst. What you think? Leave your thoughts in the comment section below. Tell us in any other fashion you want on Facebook and Twitter and the Megamaniacs and the page on smarkoutmoment.com. Get your opinions out there. What did you like? What did you dislike? What do you agree with that we said? What do you disagree with that we said? What did we forget about for any particular category? And, we are recording this on the 20th. For all we know, maybe there's something that happens over the course of the next 10 days that we end up going like, wow, yeah, the best match of the year was actually this thing that popped up on Raw next week, or actually Raw's probably a clip show.
Raw's not AEW there might be.
AEW there might be, especially because we have World's End and stuff, but maybe, who knows? We'll see. I doubt it, but if it is, we will adjust things accordingly. We'll talk about that on, some beginning of the year type podcast and leave our own comments below and such, but the 2023 year-end awards, Smarkies, are in the bag, and those are your highs and lows. Make sure that you are following us all over the place on smarkoutmoment.com and on Facebook and Twitter at smarkoutmoment. Make sure that you are heading over to the Blue Brand, fanboysanonymous.com, and seeing what happens on the geek culture spectrum. Things like movie reviews and fan tracks and random editorials that I every once in a while get a time to write, even though I always have like more and more on the back burner, and I just never get the opportunity to do as much as I want on Fanboys. But share your support for the Blue brand, and the more support you do give to that, the more that I can actually swing that. So subscribe on YouTube, hit up the Patreon for that, check out the Facebook and Twitter, and do the same for anything else that you find on the link tree. Go to amangotree.com and you will see a list of all sorts of different accounts. Like and share and follow and favorite and subscribe to all those things. And hit me up at Facebook and Twitter at Tony Mango. See what I'm up to and, say hey. And make sure you're following Rob and Callum too.
Well, hey. Follow me everywhere at DeFelice. Check out my work from this year and the past 3 years over at Fightful.com. And I look forward to a better 2024. But you can also check out what Callum's got going on.
Yep, so you can follow me on Twitter at Wigmaster14. Check out the Power Rankings every Saturday on SmarkOutMoment.com, where I rank the WWE superstars based on their previous week's performances, not just the whole year's. This is where we do it for the whole year, but I just do it every week on the Power Rankings. And then for the Fantasy League as well, you can check it out on SmarkOutMoment.com and also WWEFantasyLeague.com to see how our teams are all performing as we enter the turn of the year and really the final stretch, the final 3 or 4 months before WrestleMania, to see which one of us crown the Fantasy League champion for 2023/2024.
Won't be me because I picked.
No, it won't.
Hopefully I can close that gap and make it a tighter race, if not win. But no more WWE pay-per-views for this year, so not a big switch over planned anytime soon, but we'll come back around to that because it's the 2023 and 2024 season. Yeah, 2023 is practically over. It's the 20th of December when we're recording this, and 23rd or something when you're hearing it. So I don't know if you'll have already heard an episode of the Hot Tags yet, or if I'm not recording that yet, or if I'm not recording it at all, or whatever we might do. If so, go back and check it out. If not, then stay tuned for the next round of podcasts that we have going your way. Because, of course, we do have the one to watch at the beginning of the year. We're going to be having our usual breakdown of who do we think is going to have a really great 2024 across the board. We can talk about some other lingering hot tags if we didn't already, and some other things that happen throughout the next week or so. But if you celebrate anything around the holiday season, I hope you have a great one. I hope you have a great new year. If we don't see you in the meantime since then, make those resolutions, and we will see you when we see you. Thank you for all your support, everybody, and adios. This has been another Smark Out Moment, and we are being counted out.